NASA astronauts Sunny Williams and Tracy Dyson are working on an experiment together on the space station. So that is the voices you are hearing come down on our loop. Again, though, that is a separate activity. Our installation of Cygnus is being done by our robotics officer here in Mission Control Houston. Earlier in our coverage this morning, Cygnus conducted a series of burns. The ADV3, ADV stands for Approach Delta Velocity. That ADV3 burn is our approach initiation burn. That burn allowed Cygnus to position itself directly below the station. Next, the ADV4 burn changed the speed and direction of Cygnus to have it rendezvous to a 250-meter hold position outside the keep-out sphere. Teams polled go for the vehicle to move into that keep-out sphere, and it proceeded nominally up until our capture point when NASA astronaut Matthew Dominick used the robotic arm to successfully grapple Cygnus. We are expecting to have some brief outages during our coverage today. These are normal and expected. As the space station flies around the Earth, those communication paths need to transfer between satellites. So they will hand over that data from one satellite to another as the station orbits the Earth. Right now, though, we have beautiful views of Cygnus. The space station is currently flying over Guinea in Africa. The crew is awake on board and going through their daily activities. However, we are currently in a no exercise time period. This is because we want to ensure that there are no impactful vibrations or movements of the station while the robotics officer works to install Cygnus on the International Space Station. We are headed to the nadir, or Earth-facing port of the Unity module, and that is where Cygnus is going to remain installed for about the next 6 months. After we are installed today, there will be a series of leak checks conducted before opening the hatch door, and then the crew can start unloading the cargo. You'll hear us refer to this spacecraft as Cygnus, also Northrop Grumman's 21st cargo resupply mission, but it is also tradition to name a Cygnus spacecraft after a pioneer in space exploration who is deceased. This spacecraft is named in memory of NASA astronaut Richard Dick Scobee. Scobee was a United States Air Force pilot and Vietnam veteran. He was selected as an astronaut in 1978 and chosen as a
Central Station on 2 for microscope.
We're with you on 2, TC.
Yeah, I'm in step, let's call it 2.5. I've got the camera installed and on the C-mount back on the microscope. The cap that came off of the camera, I believe it's off the C-mount where the camera installed. It has Velcro on it, and I'm just curious, where do you normally stow this so it doesn't get lost?
We are checking. Station Huntsville on 2 for TC and microscope.
Go ahead for microscope.
TC, is there some Velcro on the microscope itself that you could use to stow that cap?
Yeah, absolutely. I just got a little nervous putting it wherever I wanted. So yeah, there's a round piece just maybe 5 inches below the C-mount, and it looks like a perfect place. Wanted to be sure before I left it hanging out there.
We copy your go to put it there, and we can always stow it somewhere else later if we need to, but I think that's a good place for it for now.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
You just heard teams at Marshall Space Flight Center.
Stanley, while I got you, step 2.7 says if phase slider not installed on microscope. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what that is. Wait, figure 2.
They are.
All you had to do is ask.
That's right.
They are working with NASA astronauts Tracy Dyson and Sunny Williams, who are currently on board the space station, working on an experiment. We do have those live feeds going out, so that is why you are hearing that separate activity. But on your screen, you can see our live views of Cygnus. This camera view is on space station. This is in that common berthing mechanism looking out at Cygnus. Those lights you see are going to help with the orientation of the alignment of the vehicle. The robotics officer is going to be maneuvering Cygnus to the installation site, so you're going to see that slowly but surely line up together. The goal is to have that guided into what's called a ready-to-latch position. Once it's in that ready-to-latch position, sensors are going to indicate to our robotics officer that it is ready to latch. We will have 2 stages of capture. For that final installation to be complete, we are looking for 4 sets of 4 bolts, so 16 in total. Once those bolts are driven, we will then confirm when that's complete, and that's going to be our second stage berthing complete. We don't have a set installation time for that to occur. We are just following along with our robotics officer. You've already heard some chatter coming down from the space station of astronauts working on experiments, and there are many new ones being delivered on today's cargo resupply mission.
So 2 and a microscope.
Go on to.
And 2.7.2. Installing the phase slider. Goes to in one direction, open in another. Is that I assume that label is for the aperture and has nothing to do with the phase slider at all, so I need not operate this thing. True.
NTC, unfortunately, we lost you in a handover, so I got to 2.72 phase slider, and then we just picked back up a second ago.
Yeah, it's good because I always need practice with my brevity, so this is a real good indicator I wasn't. So, question is, the label aperture just above the phase slider, when it's installed, has below that a knob that rotates a ring just above the phase slider. It says closed in one direction, open in the other, and I'm just verifying that has nothing to do with the phase slider. Number one. Number two is, what position do you want that slider? And it's not evident in that figure two, so I'm not sure if you are familiar enough to know what I'm talking about. Do more description if you need.
I have eyes on a diagram of the microscope, and we are checking.
Heading back to some science that's arriving aboard Cygnus today is the Packed Bed Reactor Experiment Water Recovery Series. This is going to help us understand gravitational effects on filtration systems. Insights from this investigation could lead to improvements in this technology in microgravity on the Moon and Mars, and also has applications here on Earth, such as water purification and heating and cooling systems. For this experiment, packed bed reactors are structures that use packing of objects, usually pellet-like
Station Houston on 2 for exercise. Just a reminder, no exercise at this time while we press into 2 feet for Cygnus ops.
Copies.
A reminder from our Capcom position here in Mission Control Houston for the crew not to conduct any exercises, as Cygnus is going to be brought within 2 feet of the International Space Station.
On 2, back with UTC.
Go ahead, Emily.
So your supposition that the label doesn't have anything to do with the phase slider is correct. That is for the lens itself, and we will be adjusting that during microscope ops, so no need to do anything with that today.
Okay, perfect, thanks. I didn't know if it needed to remain in the closed or position or it didn't matter.
Good question. No action doesn't matter today.
Thank you.
A great view here. As you can see, Robotics Officer Casey Chen is guiding Cygnus over to align with the common berthing mechanism on the nadir port, Earth-facing port of the space station's Unity module. Once Cygnus is aligned with the berthing port, we're guiding it into that ready to latch position. The crew is in a no exercise period. Also important is that we have the thrusters inhibited. So these are automatic thrusters on the space station that keep it oriented in the correct position. We don't want them to go off and interrupt the mission. You might hear that call out, DSATs are inhibited. The ADCO position here, Mission Control Houston, is confirming that those are off. ADCO just confirmed that thrusters are disabled. ADCO stands for Attitude, Determination, and Control Officer. ADCO is responsible for the rotational slate of the vehicle via the International Space Station Motion Control System. They manage the global positioning systems. And we just heard from our robotics officer here in Mission Control Houston that we are about 5 minutes away from installation. We have received the final go from the flight director to install Cygnus. A nice split view on your screen of two different views. These are live views of Cygnus. On the left, you can see the vehicle with its two solar arrays deployed. And on the right, this is the camera looking out from inside that common berthing mechanism, looking at Cygnus. You can see those slow final movements as Cygnus is brought into the space station. Next step is going to be that RTL ready to start driving the latches. There will also be a series of bolts, 4 sets of 4 bolts, 16 in total. Only after that bolt driving is complete do we consider this installation complete. So we will wait to call out.
Go ahead on 2.
And I got to step 2.11.1, and the power switch for Sable 2 is already in the on position, and I'm not seeing anything on the display. And in addition to that, I already connected the camera cables while that switch was on. Did I miss a step? I did. Yeah, the concession time. So 2.8.1, when it said check, I just read it too fast. I was thinking the microscope because I was working with the microscope. And so I checked that the switch on the microscope was on, but it was actually on the unit, which makes a lot more sense. So Did I honk something up?
It's like you don't even need us. You figured out the answer to your question before I could give it to you.
The part about my mistake in the procedure or honking it up. Did I honk something up?
You didn't honk it up. It's 2.8.1 is what you needed to perform.
Okay, so with the connections between the camera and the Sable already in place, am I okay to cycle the switch then, the power switch on Sable 2?
Let me double check.
Emily, by the way, the screen is a touch screen, so once I tap the screen, then the display came alive. So I guess my question is, do I need to power cycle the Sable now that I already made connections, or just move on?
We copy all that Sable is on and that everything is connected. Let me double check.
Munich Matt to Earthshine.
Munich is with you on 2, Matt.
Good morning. Execution note indicates ISO of 1,000. I remember that from last time. I also thought I remember a shutter speed change. Confirm the correct settings are ISO 1,000, shutter speed 50th.
And copy all. ISO 1000 is correct. Thanks, Matt.
Copy. Confirm shutter speed 250. There's not a delta there.
And Matt, shutter speed 250 is correct. There are no other deltas there.
Here in Mission Control Houston, we received a go to push in for that RTL ready to latch position. We are going to wait to start driving those latches until after this brief upcoming handover. Again, this is a expected and planned outage, so we are going to wait for that to pass, and then we will start the berthing process. We are referring to this installation as a berthing because we are joining two spacecraft vehicles. It's a different interface than docking. This common berthing mechanism on the International Space Station, the opening is a lot wider, so it can take larger payloads. This is a similar process to how the International Space Station was mated together. After we have all of those bolts driven, we have our installation complete. Teams will conduct a series of leak checks before opening the hatch door, and then the crew will begin to unload the cargo.